All right, so I've wanted to make a video about a topic like this for a while now, and I seen this on social media and I thought, well, I'm going to make a video about it. Now, the main topic being is why everybody, regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum, should support a Wexit movement. Now, this is Tom Milroy. He's a well, here's his Twitter description. Homeowner from Winnipeg, partner in a security defense firm. Um, HR/LR professional, was 2015 Green Party candidate for Ottawa Centre. Still Green, not Green Party. Um, and he says in this tweet, I suspect with the oil price going less than zero, we could now buy Alberta for cheap, deport the UCP and the moronic Wexiteers to the USA, start the Canadian ban on weapons of all kinds there, build solar and wind farms, retrain retrain the oil patch workforce and be done with the BS forever. Now, this is what I said. Why can't we just go? I mean, now his idea is deport everyone to the U.S. Like, again, which just goes clearly against the left's idea of being against deporting illegal immigrants, because according to them, well, people that they think that aren't contributing to society should be deported. So again, it goes completely against their argument with that. But again, the main point I wanted to bring up is that why is anybody against Wexit? Like, I'd like to come up with, because if you're on the left, we just have a Wexit. Again, to me, it doesn't make sense. Like, give us Alberta, Saskatchewan. You guys can have the rest of Canada. You can have your socialist utopia. Like, why does it make any sense too? Now, the only argument that I could see them coming up with against that is, oh, well, you guys are gonna, drill for oil and destroy the environment. But if we all go to the states, well, then we're just gonna do it there. So I mean, the states is way bigger too, so it'd be just a worse problem. So it doesn't make any sense. So why not just, like I say, give us Alberta and Saskatchewan, you take the rest of Canada, and you can have your socialist green utopia. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. Absolutely no sense whatsoever. Now, the reason why people are so reluctant to do this, if you're on the right, it's generally because people on the right are anti-collectivist, which means they refuse to act in collectivist natures, even if it's clearly beneficial to them and or society in general, which in this case it's both. And people on the right, like I say, tend to have a lack of balls, and they tend to, like I say, way too individualistic in the sense of banding together in a collective when it benefits people, or when it would benefit them. And people on the left are very collectivistic, and people on the left also realize, I would say the overwhelming majority of them, it's not conscious, but they realize that to have your socialist utopia, number one, it's never going to work long term regardless. And number two, if you don't have people that are a tax base, you know, let's say Alberta, take the equalization example. If you're pillaging people, unfairly, you need people to pillage wealth from. And Alberta is the province that has the most wealth stolen from it. And if Alberta leaves, well, guess what? You're going to have to start producing. And producing is, anti-socialist, because socialist is like, well, you don't have to produce. You just take from the rich. The problem is you need the rich to exist to be able to take from them. And that's the problem, is if Alberta and Saskatchewan leave, well, guess what? That's less producers, that's less people that are net positives, and that's why they don't want that. Now, but like I say, if you're telling me, oh, no, you're wrong. Okay, well then would you vote for a Wexit movement? Because if you wouldn't vote for a Wexit movement, which I'm guessing most of these people wouldn't, then you don't actually believe in what you believe in. Because if you believe in what you believe in, you would support a Wexit movement, especially if you're outside of Alberta and Saskatchewan. I don't know why I just did that there. Like I say, especially if you're outside Alberta and Saskatchewan, because if you're outside Alberta and Saskatchewan, there's absolutely no reason not to. Now, it's like I say, um, number one, it is the people on the left have this idea that people on the right are evil, and they're fascists, or when they take it to the extreme, at least. And they can't they and because of that belief, they have this idea that they can't be seen to have common ground with him. Like they can't be seen to have common ground no matter what. It's like the like I always bring up with the whole gay or LGBT agenda. They seem to think that if you're not fully on board, supporting drag queen story hour and 4-year-olds having the cognitive ability to change their gender, then that must mean that you're against everything, including gay marriage. When you don't seem to realize that, hey, you can be for gay marriage, but not before drag queen story hour and 4-year-olds changing their gender. Now, I'm just using those as examples, so don't get all hung up on the examples that I'm giving. Or with climate change, you can think that climate change is a big issue, but not support a carbon tax. But the problem is, the left, you say if you're against a carbon tax, that must mean you're a climate denier. But no, that's not how it works. Like again, it's like I say, they have this complex in their head that if you find any common ground, if you have any common ground, then that must mean that you're fully on board with their whole agenda. And they've sold themselves on this idea that everyone on the right are Nazis and they're evil and they're far right, therefore we can't have any common ground. Which is why you see all these people that whenever Trump brings something up, they'll just by default take the opposite position. It's like Trump, like the big thing now you see with, namely the Young Turks guy, Cenk Uygur. You know, if Trump acts too dictatorially, with too much power, they're all over him. Oh, he's a dictator. He's a fascist. But yet, if he doesn't, then he's like, Trump, what are you doing? You're letting people run wild. Act like more of a dictator. Be more of a fascist. So he can't win. Like he can't win. And it's not the same with Trudeau. It's not the same with Trudeau because everyone on the right is asking Trudeau to be more transparent from day one, to be less authoritarianistic. So basically, to bring it full circle, I I really wish that we could let's just have a Wexit movement. Like I understand it's a pipe dream. It's more than likely never going to happen, for the simple reason that people know, like I say, people on the right not collectivistic enough, don't have the balls, and people on the left. And again, I don't mean that as an insult. It's just I've seen it in person a lot before. Um, and the people that I don't have the balls, I'm not referring to people who are full on Wexit supporters. I'm talking about your milk toast conservative kind of person. Um, and like I say, people on the left much more collectivistic, willing to use violence to get their way, a lot more likely. And not like I say, just the ability to be more collective is why they keep winning. Um, so that's what I wanted to bring up too. And like I say, I'd like for people on the left to come up with realistic reasons of why you don't support a Wexit movement, because it makes no sense. Like if Alberta and Saskatchewan weren't voting in federal elections, elections would come down to far left. I mean, they wouldn't be far left anymore, but literal socialists, like literal socialists who support the Green New Deal and every green initiative you can possibly imagine, and more moderate liberals. That's what elections would come down. Like the conservatives, I don't even know if they would get third place, and they would be moderate conservatives too. Like people don't realize that, and to me it makes no sense. Like you're a lefty, you want your leftist socialist utopia, then why not support a Wexit movement? Why not tell people, yeah, they should leave, like they should leave, then we can have our green socialist utopia. It makes no sense. And for people on the right too. Like we could have a more right-leaning government. Now, I wouldn't support a Wexit movement if it was just let's just leave and let it be that. We'd have to implement rules or implement laws or a constitution to where we would have things that would prevent against ending up right back where we started. Because if we just left things the same, that's what would happen. But that's another video in and of itself. But again, I wanted to make a video about this because this is something that boggles my mind, why people on the left and why more milquetoast conservatives don't support Wexit. Like, why not? Like, seriously, why not? It makes no sense whatsoever, because we can have a more conservative, right-leaning Alberta, Saskatchewan Wexit country, and the rest of Canada can have their leftism, and may the best man win. If a I mean, the other problem too is that, um, if a Wexit did happen and if a Wexit was in place, there would be every attempt possible to sabotage it, which would probably screw it over as well. So that's another thing that would kind of suck. But again, I wanted to make a video about this because most people on the left think this. Like they have very distinct disdains, hatred for Alberta and Saskatchewan, largely because they disagree with them politically. And if you want to get rid of that hatred, let them leave. Like seriously, let them leave. But like I say, I think there's a knowing in the back of your head unconsciously that the only way that these more left-wing systems can work is you have that tax base of people who are putting in disproportionately more than they're getting out of the system on average. And if Alberta and Saskatchewan left, all of a sudden Quebec would be out $20 billion, or sorry, like whatever it is, 10, 12 billion a year. The Maritimes, I think, get some. Ontario gets some. Manitoba gets some. I think Alberta and Saskatchewan are of the major provinces, and maybe BC. But Alberta loses out by far the most. Like Alberta loses like what is it, 20 to 22 billion dollars a year from equalization, and yet somehow people can still look at Albertans be like, what do we have to benefit by leaving from leaving Canada? $22 billion isn't any bit of an incentive. Like are you like borderline retarded? Like it's $22 billion. Like seriously, like you know how much money that is? But anyway, um, I'm going to leave the video there. I could talk for hours on this topic, but like I say, it makes no sense to me why anybody, regardless of where you're at on the political spectrum, does not want a Wexit movement. Now, Wexit isn't this far right movement either. Too, people seem to have that complex too. I think that's just a smear. Let's find out a way to discredit the movement without actually having to debate it, which is a classic leftist tactic. We'll just call you racist rather than debate you, or call you a sexist rather than debate you, or call you a fascist rather than debate you. If you're on the right, you're well aware of that already. But like I say, I don't understand why anybody would be against it. To me, the only people that would be against it are the milk toast, quote unquote moderates. But I think that most moderates, number one, they're not moderate. They usually lean one way, and the ones that actually are tend to be because they view it as I'm special because I don't belong to either. They constantly criticize conservatives and lefties about being in oh, it's the leftists or the liberal tribe, or the right leaning or the conservative tribe, and all you guys care about is your tribes and your team, but yet you claim you have these beliefs and you don't actually believe them. It's just your way of being in a team, right? And not only that, your team is more unique and whatnot, so it makes you feel even more special. But anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. If you'd like to, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last thing, as always, check out my BitChute channel. Again, YouTube's going to ban me, shadow ban me at some point, so check that out.